Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. So, patch 7.3.5 is overhauling the leveling system of the game, and to celebrate that, we're going to be looking at what I think is the ultimate leveling UI for World of Warcraft, in its default setting anyway. So that's you sat on a computer chair, playing the game with a keyboard and a mouse. I have something planned to make WoW feel more like an action-adventure game that's perfect for a couch, big TV, and a controller, but that's something for another day. Now, many of us have robust UIs that are designed to display essential information to us in endgame scenarios. That's perfect for playing most of World of Warcraft, but when leveling a character, especially with the revamped leveling system, you might be looking for a game that feels more immersive. So you'll want to build a UI that accentuates those aspects of the game, rather than one that's wholly focused on displaying combat information efficiently. Even when we hop over to traditional action games, we often see that they offer, UI options, or they give you a low-key UI, and they do that for good reason, because it is good for the immersion of the game. So the handy part of this video as well is that we're going to be managing things with add-on control panel, which allows you to swap between sets of add-ons with ease, which means that transitioning back to your max level character and hopping into a raid, that's something that will be extremely easy and only a few clicks for you. The first thing I'm going to do is walk through the UI here, and then we'll hop in game to quickly show you the setup, which this time is really easy. So when making a leveling UI, we basically want a UI that does the job without taking up too much space, while ideally having a cohesive visual style and good UX. The UX, or user experience, of WoW feels quite dated because Blizzard have opted to stay close to the feel of their UI from 2004. I originally planned to do something highly customized with weak auras to fix this problem, but I ended up finding something far easier and far more practical, and that's GW2 UI. This is an extensive UI modification that essentially transplants the Guild Wars 2 UI over to World of Warcraft. The add-on has lovely hand-painted textures, animated bars, and a layout that's well suited to this task. It also doesn't require much setup, so it can be applied to any character quite easily, unlike, say, a weak aura's base situation that requires a lot of custom work. It does have a profile system and basic layout customization, plus its modules can be enabled and disabled as you please. Overall, it's a far more modern looking and feeling UI than the default one, and it serves as a great base for what we're doing here. It's a seriously impressive bit of work, but it's not one that you need to use. If you want to just make something super minimal and less stylized, then doing something quickly in ElvUI that's, low-key, that's pretty easy to do. So the next thing to fix is NPC interaction. The WoW interaction system is, once again, something that has not changed much since 2004, and it really does feel that old. Guild Wars 2 UI does actually have a quest frame system, but I disabled that and went with Immersion, which is an NPC interaction overhaul mod that you've likely seen on the channel before. It was what my ill-fated WoW Tales project was actually running off, so it's worth pointing out here for disclosure that I do actually know the dev. But anyway, when compared to other options, I think this goes for a nice consistent layout that feels modern, low-key, with simple in-out animations. I was sort of concerned that it wouldn't fit the style of GW2 UI, but I do feel that it actually works quite well. Now, it displays quest text in smaller chunks and allows for you to sort of read it faster, not deal with an annoying wall of text, and overall, it just really is a massive improvement. Next, we want a camera system that frames the action dramatically. So the way that camera behaves is core to the feeling of action feeling great in just about everything, be it an action movie, an action game, or, believe it or not, World of Warcraft. The greatly enhanced combat animations of Legion do not shine with a camera that's bolted to the back of your camera. When you're playing a melee character with a default camera, you can't, or you can barely even see your weapons connect with the enemy due to the camera angle. Now, to be clear, what I'm going to do here I don't think is ideal for raiding at all, and it does begin to break down when you face some of the hilariously oversized bosses in the game, but for the purpose of making the leveling more immersive and more fun, we're going to be using it. And yes, I do mean it when I say fun. The animations and sound effects that come from your computer when you mash a button, well, that is a part of what makes combat feel satisfying. Now, the Action Cam console command in-game does not give us enough control, so we are instead going to solve this problem by using a great add-on called Dynamic Cam to tweak the angles and the camera behavior in various different situations. Now, this can be tweaked to your liking, but you can also just use my settings. Next, we need to talk about sound. It's often something that's really overlooked, but it's one of the most powerful ways to immerse yourself in a game, or even, say, a movie that's got great sound design. I recommend that you cut all your sound sliders about in half, and then place ambient sound effects to like 80%, basically boosting the ambient stuff up a lot. This ups the volume of things like wind, rain, trees, rustling in the breeze, basically the stuff that forms the audio texture of the zone that you're in. Getting this right, it's like being at home sitting beside a crackling wood fire when it's raining outside. It really does place you in the zone and is a lot more immersive. Let's talk about keybinds. So think about it this way. When you hit the W key in game to walk forward, does that register in your brain as you hitting a ability called walk forwards? No, it just feels like a direct control of your character. Basically, it just feels really natural. And the game overall will feel a lot more punchy and responsive when you figure out key bindings well. So, what do I do? Well, I keep my combat abilities to the numbers. Remember, I use a scimitar mouse, so that makes sense. Then I bind A and D to strafe, which frees up Q and E. Now for me, Q is almost always a movement ability like roll. Now having my movement abilities being on a super easy to access button right beside my regular movement keys keeps the game feeling actiony. So rather than binding keys purely based on utility, I would recommend approaching this problem as if you're designing an action-adventure game and you're trying to find out what controls feel the most fun to play. So with all those things in mind, let's hop in game and do a quick setup walkthrough so you can get this going yourself. Okay, so time for the in-game section of this video where I'll give you a quick walkthrough of how all of this stuff works. First of all, let's cover GW2 UI. So a lot of this, of course, you've already seen, but just to run you over it, we've got our XP bar down here. You can see very nicely animated. And one thing you'll generally see here is the level of animations of UX design is very high. It's very AAA. It feels quite modern, a lot more so than the 2004 UI that we pretty much use in World of Warcraft. So if you look at this mob here, as soon as I do damage, if you look at its bar, you can see, like, the bar's damage is sort of animated all nicely, and it's got this nice hand-painted texture look to it, which I think is quite a good fit for the art style. Now you can see that with the decals on the top and the bottom of the screen, and how, say, these little new icons for your, micro menu stuff all sort of fit in quite well there. For things like our character menu, we've got we've got a revamped UI that is, I think, a lot nicer looking than the Blizzard one. So we've got that stuff going on. Now, down here, normal, action bars. There's my energy, my health in the middle. You can see we've got these sort of pop-up action bars here. Currently, I've got it set up so that they're sort of hidden, like one of the buttons is hidden if there's not something bound there, which I'm not really too sure if that looks clean. But, yeah, as soon as I go into combat, though, you will be able to see these. So that's how that's working. Overall, though, it's quite simple. Maybe not the best setup for raiding, but for what we're doing right now, I think it works perfectly because it gives us a cohesive style for everything that's very clean, well animated and all that jazz, which helps the game feel immersive. Also, you've got a pretty good quest tracker here, which is certainly a lot nicer looking than the default Blizzard one, which, does not look nice at all. Even, for your track thing, you've got a little compass if you want that, but a lot of this stuff can be enabled and disabled at will. Now, if I get into combat with an enemy, first thing, if you look at my bar here, you can actually see there's a nice little animation whenever I gain a combo point, which is pretty cool, and that's something that you'll see across all, the different specs. But let's talk about dynamic cam. So right now, you can see the way my camera's operating. The way that it pitches whenever I zoom in and out is very different to live, and I also have a shoulder offset. The reason why the shoulder offset is used in this, and in pretty much every AAA action-adventure game, is that, it frames the action better. You can see, attacks connect to the enemy, and because you're viewing your character, which is a 3D model, from an offset, you see a lot more of their depth, which just... I don't know what the right word is. Is it presence, place? It just makes them feel more kind of like they're in the world. Basically, the world feels a lot bigger when the camera's done like this, even when you do sort of zoom out a little bit, which I think, again, is something that, while it's not important for raiding, it is important for immersion, and that's our goal here. So that's what our camera is like normally. Of course, if I type in /DC to bring up the dynamic cam stuff, now I've got, enabled using the action cam and advanced mode. Advanced mode is very important for me. So if we look at the world situation, which is what I'm currently in the advanced settings, I am using this base FOV pad, which kind of changes the angle of your camera a little bit. I have it right in the middle, but I've been experimenting with that. And of course, for all this stuff, hit the video description, because that's the best place to do all this sort of complicated stuff. Yeah, so pretty default setup though. Got our shoulder offset, all that stuff going on. If I go to World, Combat, you can see I've got different settings for combat. So really, actually, they're quite similar. The one difference, though, is I do target lock, and I'll show you what that's like. So, I know also it only does the target lock if an enemy is attackable, isn't dead, etc. Because when this feature is turned on by default, it's really annoying in my view. Like, if I say click on this enemy, I don't want my camera to just move and jerk away to frame on him. But if I actually get into combat with an enemy, then I feel like, see the way the camera is behaving differently? It's kind of keeping it a little bit more centered on my enemy. You can see the way just that my character is moving on the screen is quite different from what it's like normally. This, again, helps to frame the action in a way that is more impactful and punchy, which is great. Yeah, it feels a bit more like, you know, you're playing Dark Souls and you've locked onto an enemy and you're circle strafing around them, sort of. I just really like how this operates. And just the combat feel here, I think, is great. Even though I am using a keyboard and mouse, which is not something that's ideal for an action-adventure game, like, say, I don't know, Horizon or Assassin's Creed, it does make it feel a bit better, which I definitely like. Now, there's situations for just about everything that you can set up, you know, as you wish. I will post my sort of ideal setup in the video description, so that's the place to look. Now, I also want to briefly mention sound. So, system, we'll go to sound. This is what I've got here, as I mentioned in the sort of first half of the video. Now, I am doing this on a 21:9 aspect ratio monitor, so it's ultra wide, just like you're watching a movie. It's a lot more immersive by default, and I'm also using a very good, good quality headset. Not one that has that weird virtual 7:1 surround sound, instead one that is just a good open back set of cans that's got, you know, a really good sound stage. They're the Sennheiser 6 XXs from Mass Drop. But that really does, for me, help to bring out the immersion because it just places you better in the world. And of course, because a lot of this stuff that you're doing is going to be in the old world, even on a lower end system, you probably can afford to just put the view distance and all that stuff completely up full. Even though a lot of these are old assets, I do think this actually looks quite pleasing, so that's definitely a benefit. Now, to show you NPC interaction, I'm going over to this base, but while I'm doing that, I want to quickly talk about the add-on control panel. So let's go to add-ons. And this is just my add-on stuff, okay? So you can toggle them on and off as you wish. Whenever you've got the setup of add-ons that you want, the stuff here like, do I need Garrison Mission Manager on? No, I don't. But you go to sets, you choose a set, you can rename it, as you can see I have, and you just hit save. And that will just save the current add-on configuration that you have. And then if I want to say go to my default UI, I just go here, I hit load. If I want to use my immersive one, I go here, I hit load. Extremely easy. Now, I do actually have to give up a few quests here so I can pick them up again and talk to these NPCs. Okay, so there's a quest over here. Now, I'm using immersion. Now, that does mean in the Guild Wars 2 UI settings, I have got immersive questing unticked. Because I'm replacing that with the immersion add-on. Now, in here you can do things like, you know, you can move the HUD elements around, you can enable and disable the various different modules. It's all very simple stuff. So if I go up to this NPC and I right-click, you can see it's using the art style, the style of the Legion talking head frame. Whenever I hit space, it will move to the next stage of the conversation. This splits the quest text up, which means you're not confronted with a wall of text. Generally, I think it's a far nicer way to get the quest text and all of that stuff. And now that I finished reading all that, whenever I hit space again, it just picks the quest up. So you can just go in, hit space a few times, you get your quest. It's very easy to read the text. All works very well. If I go back to this NPC and talk to them, you can see it's completely replaced all of the NPC interaction. So if I talk to this guy, you can see it works for him as well, even though he's not a quest giver, and that's why I use immersion for this. Overall, though, that is a very quick to set up way to make World of Warcraft feel more immersive, which I think is perfect for the revamped leveling system of patch 7.3.5. So that is it for me. I hope you have found this video useful. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.